Emma Grede, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about your morning.
Oh, it's been a pretty spectacular morning, I have to say. I mean, you know, these things you agree to come and you're invited and then it gets put on a schedule and then you're kind of standing there looking at yourself on a billboard in Times Square. And honestly, it was quite emotional. Like Aurora and I were very taken aback in that moment. And so I would say it's one of the prouder moments of my life, I have to say.
I love that. Let's talk about the emotion.
I'm always full of emotion.
Well, this is really special emotion because, you know, as someone like you who is, you obviously have many jobs, you're running quite a few companies, and, you know, with dreams and goals and right there, like building and building and building. What is it like to be here where, you know, you're really among giants who have done this, taken their companies public, they're shifting what the, you know, economy and the ecosystem looks like. You're right there as well. Like, what does that feel like to be here?
Well, you know, I really believe in manifestation. So I think that it's very good for me to see myself up there like that and, you know, do the thing. So I don't know, you know, I really, I think about my life right now, and there's so many things that I never expected to be doing, but also without too much arrogance, there's also a lot of it that's like, I worked for this, I kind of deserve to be here.
Absolutely.
So I think it's the amalgamation of both things, I would say.
So you're here really representing the 15% pledge today.
I am indeed.
Tell us about the 15% pledge.
Well, you know, I have to say, first of all, you know, I am the very proud chairwoman of the 15% pledge, but it was started by an incredible woman who's become a great friend of mine, Aurora James. And the magical thing about being here today is that, you know, that nonprofit started as an Instagram post. One woman with a way of seeing things and somebody that wanted to do something about a problem, that problem being the access and opportunity for Black-owned brands to get onto the shelves of the biggest retailers in this country. And the pledge was this very, very simple premise, right? Black people make up roughly 15% of the population of this country, and therefore retailers should really try to make 15% of their annual buys go towards Black-owned businesses. And I think what started as a proclamation, as a like, this is what you can do in this moment, when we go back to that terrible moment post the murder of George Floyd, has really turned into such a movement. And the reason I came on board is because when I saw what Aurora had decided she was going to do, I saw it immediately as a business opportunity, as a commercial opportunity, and being somebody that, because of what I do and the businesses that I run, can get pretty much, you know, most CEOs of American retailers on the phone. I was like, hey, I can help over here. And I'm really proud to say that 4 years later, we're still doing the work. We have 29 pledge takers. We've created a $14 billion pipeline of opportunity for Black-owned brands. And over 700 brands are on the shelves of these businesses that weren't there before. And so I always think about that in, you know, it sounds so grand and like, it's so brilliant, but that's like 700 founders, 700 families, their communities, the people that work in those businesses that are affected because of the impetus and the work of, you know, of one person primarily, somebody putting themselves out there. And so, you know, I'm asked so many questions about women and business and how we think about things and our emotion. She took all of her emotion and she put it into a post and then she did something about it. And I think that's so brilliant. And it could only happen with a Black woman in America. And 4 years later, we'd be standing here. So pretty amazing, I would say.
Where do you think the pledge will be in 5 years?
Oh my goodness. You know, Aurora would always say, you know, at some point, you know, one would hope that our work would be done, that there's actually, that we create the conditions for ourselves to almost be redundant, that we don't need to think about this. But I do think that's a long way off. And so in 5 years, my hope would be that the work we do with our pledge takers goes deep and, you know, they meet the commitments of 15%, but also that it goes wider and broader. And so I think there's so much more work to do. But, you know, I said it a little bit earlier, this is not a race to sign 100 different retailers. This is a race to sign the right retailers with the commitment, with the capabilities, the understanding and the infrastructure to be able to do the work. This is not work that we see as frivolous. You have to be committed to doing it. And so it's about signing the right retailers.
It makes total sense. What you're really doing is you're building a blueprint.
Absolutely.
For also any retailer, and then more than retailers, any companies, to really be able to put sometimes their money where their mouth is, to say this is how you can actually do it in a sustainable way, in a scalable way, and in a systems change way.
100%.
That's amazing. This is essentially like when you're building blueprints, you're at the forefront of innovation.
Yes.
You are no stranger to that. Tell us a little bit about, you know, your journey, and now being, you know, the CEO and co-founder of Good American. You really changed, and Good American really changed the industry for inclusive bodies.
Yeah, you know, it's something that I'm so proud of. And I have to say, you know, growing up, I never thought once about being an entrepreneur. Like, I knew what a hustler was, like in my head, but I never thought that I would start a business. What happened is I found myself in a position, I think like so many women, that, you know, I was working in a company and I thought, I deserve to be paid more. Like, and they didn't want to pay me more. So, you know, no point in sitting around whinging about it. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start something myself and see if I can pay me more. And so I spent, you know, a long time, over, you know, 12 years building a business that was really at the heart of where media and entertainment collides. I worked on so many different fashion and entertainment partnerships, and I was very, very early in the influencer economy. But for all intents and purposes, I was an agent. I had an agency. I went job to job, client to client. And after a while, that gets really tiresome. So I sold that company and decided I would start my own brand. And I think what happened is that I really essentially had a front row seat at the intersection of fashion and entertainment for a very long time. And what I saw was that so many brands were performative in the way they used women of color, in the way they used plus size models. They were often, you know, having a plus size girl in the campaign, and yet they didn't make the clothes. And to me, what I saw, and this wasn't about outrage, this was like, there's an opportunity here. There's a commercial opportunity, there's a white space. Yes. And doesn't it make more sense that if you create a company that can service more people, well, maybe you'll be more commercially successful too. And that is how Good American was born. It was really about creating product for all women, regardless of their size, and putting the choice back into the hands of women. Like, I shouldn't decide what style of jean you need to wear. I don't need to tell you that you have to have a dress that's like cut on a bias with a big long sleeve because you're a certain size. I'm going to just make the clothes and make them in all the sizes. We go from an extra, extra small to a 5X. And women will make the choices for themselves, what they want to wear. And at the time, you go back 7 years, it was a revelation.
Yes.
Because for so long, you know, women have been sent into, honestly, you know, quite honestly, hideous plus size retailers, or up to the 5th floor where they've got this tiny little selection that's like pushed in the back. And, you know, what we did was come with real quality, real innovation, products that people want to wear. We showed them on many, many different types of bodies. And what I didn't realize in the beginning was that we were innovating. I knew I was doing something that was interesting, but I never thought about having to go to factories and buy machinery, which is what we did.
You didn't feel like you were on the cusp of doing something different?
No, I was like, let me just make all the sizes. I didn't know until I went to the factories, they would be like, well, this seamless garment we can't make. And I'd be like, well, why? Well, Emma, we can't do 3, 4, and 5X because the machine doesn't knit that way. And I was like, oh, get out of it, you know. And then I'd make a journey, like go to the factory, and I'd be like, oh, okay, well, what do we need to do? We need to buy machinery. And I was like, well, then I'll buy the machinery, but I want to be the one that gets to use it. And so, you know, I think what started out as a bit of like a mission in myself, like, I'm going to get this done because you guys say it's not possible, ended up fulfilling so much for so many women. And I honestly didn't realize how so many women were kept out of the fashion conversation because of their size. Yeah. I just thought, let's do something that can be for as many people as possible. And in that came, you know, a bit of a fashion revolution.
It's really brilliant. It's a revolutionary act to do when people tell you things are impossible at every single stage. I think before Good American, never before had a full collection been in one place before.
No.
And so not only were people sent to, you know, different stores and different floors, but they really were told consciously and unconsciously that they don't belong.
100%. Like, you don't belong here.
At all.
This is not for you at all. All the time. And what does that do to someone? And I think it's so interesting because I started Good American after the birth of my second child, a girl, and it gets you thinking about how much of, you know, being a woman and feeling valued, seen and heard and represented is attributed to the way we look and how we dress. And you know how it feels when you've got a good outfit on, you kind of have like a pep in your step. You're like, I feel great, I feel confident. And so we shouldn't be like deciding who gets to have that feeling, right? It's like, for me, it was so simple. Like, make the clothes, the customer will come. And what I didn't anticipate is that there would be such an education around, we were a direct-to-consumer business, but right from the outset, I said, if this is not in stores, she's not going to believe it.
Yeah.
They won't believe that we're actually making clothes that really fit all body types. And so
because nothing had ever fit before.
Yeah, and that was always the case, with the plus size customer. She's been trained to believe that she doesn't belong. And so I thought, if we just put out these images, nobody's going to understand. So we needed wholesale partners to come on board. And of course, I go around knocking on the doors and they're like, well, we'll take this section of your size range. And I was like, no, that's not the point. That goes against the point. And so it was a real uphill battle. There were so many no's that we had to turn into yeses, not just at a vendor and factory level, but at a retail level, at a marketing level. We really had to spend that first, I would say, 18 months fighting and proving the case, and I was right.
Congratulations on being right.
Day one. It's like, we were right.
You were right.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it takes that vision, and even though you're saying like you were fighting, but you didn't necessarily know that you were going to be innovating or disrupting an industry.
I just don't like to be told no. That's the truth.
Sure, but often
could have been anything.
But often that is where the change happens,
yeah,
right?
I think so. I think so. It's so interesting because I think so much as, as women, like, you can be so held back by fear. And I had a lot of fear when I started this company of what I didn't know, what I thought perhaps somebody knew better than me. But, I've never really let fear hold me back from what my dreams are. And I feel that, I was like, this is just important. It's important for me to see something through. It's important for me to create something for myself. And so I've always been pretty hell-bent on getting things done that I think are important for me and putting like my ambition, my dreams, like first, unashamedly so. And so that's part of where I think that tenacity in the early days really came from. It was just like, this is important to me, so it should be important to you too.
Do you see more women doing that?
Yeah, 100%. It's like, I am actually in New York because I'm promoting a new show called Side Hustlers. And the show has been so amazing, not because I'm doing TV, but because the premise of it is to work with these incredible women that we're mentoring to turn their side hustles, their side jobs into their main hustles. And it's just been magical to watch. It's a bit like this morning, I never realized how emotional it would be.
Yeah.
And it's emotional because I remember when that was me.
Yeah.
I remember when I was out there hustling first to raise money, for people to take you seriously, for people to understand your idea, then you're fighting for people to take you seriously. And so the idea that more women are taking their destinies into their own hands and saying, you know what, like, I want to start a business. I'd like to do it on my own terms. Here's where I think there's a white space opportunity. I love the idea that I can be part of, so many people's journeys. It's really, really important to me.
Yeah, there's definitely been a shift.
Yeah,
of
huge.
Not only creating the conditions, but everything from like, we're going to do it this way, and we're going to tell you how we're going to do it, and then it's going to happen.
100%. No, it really is palpable. And I think that, for women, it's very different. And I think when we sit around and we don't acknowledge how different it is for women to start a business, right? Oftentimes, to be successful, it takes your unadulterated attention. And that is something that as women, we're not always afforded that. I read this brilliant quote the other day. I think it was Natalie Portman. And she said, I don't have the opportunity to be method in my process. Can you imagine if I went home as like Jackie O to my kids, like they'd be like, hello, mom, like, what are you doing? Yeah. And it kind of was so interesting to me because I thought so many women have so many other responsibilities, so many other people that they have to take care of, that to take your ambition and be like, I'm going to be fully fledged, 100% focused on this, is not always a reality. Yeah. And I feel like that for myself. It's like I had other things going on. And so you have to kind of like hash it over here. And I'm not saying that's the case for all women, but for so many it is. And not only do you have the burden of all the things that you need to do, but like you might have bills to pay, you might have like a mortgage. And, so I honestly think that the way women come to business is often very different. And so the way that we are going to make things work and get things out there is also going to be very different. And to deny that things are different is actually to hold us back, right? We have to think about our biological clock if that's something that we want. We have to think about having the right partner if we really want to pursue something big and important. And so there's just a lot of added stuff that a woman would go through in being an entrepreneur that is just not there for men.
Yeah. It's always interesting hearing people talk about valuations, especially when you talk to men about valuations, because in the space of consumer products, especially for women, so many people, along a roadshow, across a, in hearing like whether this product is valuable or not, often you have to say like, call your wife. Or call your daughter.
100% sure. I cannot tell you how many meetings I've been in and been like, text your wife, text your daughter and see if she knows what we're talking about. I mean, for sure. You got to know your audience.
You really do. Before we wrap, we ask everyone what they're in pursuit of. It's really personal, it's professional, like whether it's, around something that you want to fundamentally change. So as you think about, you've been very goal oriented your whole career, you're seeing so many of the work come into the world. What do you think, like, what drives you and
really
what are you in pursuit of?
Question. What am I in pursuit of? Who knows? I mean, for me, it could just be like the most fundamental thing. It's freedom, right? It's like freedom to do what I want on my terms, in my time, as I please. Like, it's really simple stuff. I'm a mother of 4 and I preside in a lot of different businesses. And I honestly think that what's been most important to me is to create those companies on my terms in a way that really works for me and works for the people that I surround myself with. Nothing makes me prouder than I had somebody, this incredible woman who's worked for me for about 6 years, Kay, came back to work this week after having her 3rd baby at Good American. And she has climbed the ranks. She's at a much higher position, paid way more than when she actually started with us. She's been able to have her family and she's come back in, of course, raring to go. And those are the things that make me really happy. I wanted to create a company that doesn't just talk about this stuff. The proof is in the pudding. How are you actually making your company work for the women and the people that are in it? There's no good me just sitting here being like, I get to do everything I want. That's not it. You're the boss, of course you do. So I think those are the things, and that would be freedom from any constraints of how things should work. And that's been very, very important in building these businesses.
I love that. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.